Hello and welcome to Ethical Corporation's webinar on multi-stakeholder engagement. Over the next 45 minutes, we will be discussing approaches and experiences of how 3 top European brands manage their stakeholder engagement strategy to help drive behavioral change and meet their sustainability goals. My name is Karina Amin, and I'm a project director here at Ethical Corporation, and I'll be moderating the discussion today. With us today, we have Christine Diamante, who is Head of Brand and Corporate Sustainability at Alcatel-Lucent. Christine leads the sustainability strategy, target, and global reporting, and has led Alcatel-Lucent to a #1 ranking in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, and is super sector leader for its strategy and performance in the technology sector. We also have Yves Nassim, Deputy Chief CSR Officer at Orange. Yves' main areas of expertise are stakeholder dialogue, CSR transformation, and CSR reporting at the group level for Orange. And we also have with us Caroline McCarthy-Stout, who is Head of Strategy and Reporting, Responsible Business at Lloyds Banking Group. Caroline has most recently been working on developing the Help Britain Prosper plan at Lloyds Banking Group to help align the responsible business strategy to the wider business strategy of the bank. The UK banking sector has faced its fair share of challenges since the financial crisis in 2008. We're going to speak to Lloyds Banking Group about how they're moving forward with their stakeholder engagement, bring back positive sentiment to stakeholders, and improve dialogue. Thank you all for joining. To give you an understanding of today's structure, we will have a series of polling questions to ask the audience, as well as an opportunity to ask speakers questions throughout the discussion. There will be a focused discussion with the speakers, trying to bring out as much of their expertise and knowledge from their backgrounds and the work they've done around what a successful stakeholder engagement strategy looks like. But before we begin, I'd like to emphasize that this is an interactive discussion. On the right-hand side, you will see a box where you can post your questions. You can also post questions on Twitter via the hashtag ECRC, so please do get involved. We will now begin the webinar and discussion. Kicking off with today's webinar, we have a question to the audience. And to those listening in, please feel free to get involved. The poll question should now be on your screen. The first poll question is, do you feel you have an effective stakeholder engagement strategy? The choices are A, yes, or B, no. Now, audience, this is your opportunity to get your views shared, so it would be great to have your input in this question. We will be closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the results of the poll are a whopping 71% say no, they do not feel like they have an effective stakeholder engagement strategy, and 29% say yes. Now, historically, stakeholder engagement has been a perennial question for big brands to get right. Our results, as I've just said, 71% have said no, they do not have an effective stakeholder strategy. Why don't we pose this question to Christine? Christine, are you surprised by this result?
So thank you, Karina, and I'd like to say good morning to everyone who is participating and online in this webinar. It's always a pleasure and an honor for me to be invited to participate as a panelist in Ethical Corporation's sessions. And Karina, I think we really have a very timely topic and a critical one. So what is my reaction? I don't think it's surprising. I think stakeholder engagement is probably one of the trickiest areas when it comes to corporate sustainability or corporate responsibility. It is a topic that is evolving over time, that's taking increasing importance and momentum in businesses' strategies, in their action plans, in their performance, and in their brands. And I think the expectations from material stakeholders out there are rising as well, which is good on the one hand because there's a recognition that sustainability plays a key role in a company's overall performance. However, on the other hand, which makes it a double challenge. And so I don't think there's any surprise. I think today it is one of the major challenges out there. I think we have a lot to share on it. But I think the single most important thing that we have to keep in mind is who are your target stakeholders when you're thinking about your strategy, and what is the best mechanism to reach out to them.
Interesting, Christine. Interesting thoughts there. In light of all those challenges that you've mentioned, what do you think a sophisticated engagement strategy looks like? And why is this important?
So I think it's not necessarily about having a sophisticated engagement strategy. I think it's about having a straightforward, compelling, and meaningful sustainability stakeholder engagement strategy. So the first thing you have to do is take a step back and say, who's your targeted audience? At Alcatel-Lucent, our target audience, when we talk about sustainability, is first and foremost our customers. In the technology industry, and particularly in the telecommunications industry, sustainability is not an option. It's part of the business. With the rising exponential growth of smart devices on telecommunications networks, energy efficiency is a key factor at the base of all of our customers' minds. How do we deal with consuming energy costs and energy usage? How do we reduce carbon footprint? How do we make networks more affordable, more accessible? As we know today, the world is digital. So for us, our sustainability strategy is first, and our performance, our target audience is our customers. Our second target audience are investors, employees, and then obviously other key fields, including civil society, public authorities, etc. And so a straightforward stakeholder engagement strategy must be first and foremost targeted and balanced. Targeted for your target audiences that you've identified, and balanced to be able to find the right means to reach out to them, because I don't think there's any silver bullet. At Alcatel-Lucent, our main means to be able to communicate with our customers and investors, employees, civil society, and public authorities is our website. Every single year, we update and offer full transparency on our website, www.alcatel-lucent.com/sustainability. We've in fact transformed our sustainability report into the website first and foremost, and then after that we zip the report up afterwards in a very straightforward PDF style. We've also integrated our sustainability performance into our annual financial report, so we have a dedicated chapter in our financial report, our 20F, which gives a very clear snapshot of our sustainability performance for the economic, environmental, and social dimensions with all of our indicators and external verification. We have also embedded a simple highlights video for the employee who wants to understand our sustainability strategy in 3 minutes or less. So they get the key highlights, they understand where we are with our performance, they understand our priorities, they understand our values, and they'll be able to navigate their way through our website to find out more. And then finally, we've also used social media quite extensively as a way of pushing out information, pushing out different elements of our strategy and performance. And then finally, what we've done is, beyond just reporting, beyond just communicating on your website or in your annual financial report or even your annual report or through social media, we've set up a sustainability advisory panel of 8 of our most material stakeholders to sit down with them and to do qualitative discussions, deep dive sessions on our key material issues to make sure we match their expectations, to get their feedback and dialogue, recalibrate our strategy and performance, and to ensure that we know that we are meeting expectations, but we also understand the expectations to be and to continue pushing leadership in this space for the technology sector.
Excellent, Christine. The Sustainability Advisory Panel sounds fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit more about the impact of this that this has on your business and your wider sustainability goals?
Yes, thank you. So this is a new advisory panel for us. After years of publishing a report, publishing our website, pushing information out via our communications means, whether it's social media, Twitter, blogs, YouTube, etc., we felt that what we really needed to do was to sit down and to have meaningful dialogue with 8 of our most material stakeholders. So in early 2014, we set up a simple panel composed of 3 customers, an investor, a rating agency, a public authority, an NGO, and one of our major suppliers. And we've had targeted sessions, they're virtual sessions, where we explored different areas of our sustainability strategy and performance and our priorities and our differentiating factors to get their feedback. We've also done our materiality analysis, and we're going to be engaging with our advisory panel to do a materiality analysis with them as well. And at the end of the year, we will recalibrate our strategy and our performance based on the feedback of these sessions. So it really is a way of being able to understand who your most material stakeholders are out there, to engage with them directly, to get meaningful feedback, and to recalibrate according to expectations.
Brilliant. Thanks, Christine. I'd actually like to bring Yves Nassim into the conversation, as Yves is also in the telecoms industry. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on the results of the poll, Yves. Just to remind you, we had 71% disagree and say they do not have an effective engagement strategy for their stakeholders. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm not amazed by the result. Engaging stakeholder is quite a huge effort for a company or for a small business or for people to do. It is not business as usual, and that's what makes it very difficult. You know, companies like us are used to engage with their customer. They're not used to engage with their customers on sustainability issues. They're used to engage with customers on customer relationship, on business, but when it comes to real sustainability issues, they're not used to. So it's quite a difficult behavior for a company to engage, and we've been trying to do that for quite a few years now. Let me first introduce the company Orange. We are a telco. We do operate in 29 countries, direct operation with basic customers in the countries, and we do have over 200 countries in which we operate for the business-to-business operations. So our stakeholders, our main stakeholders are you, are people, are everybody. They are regular customers. So engaging with them bring us immediately a problem of trying to get, in terms of statistic, the message that is representative from all our customers. Now, going from country to country, we do operate in Africa, we do operate in France, of course, we do operate in England. You do understand that the customers are very different when we go from country to country. You do understand that customers have their own habits, their own culture, their own way of reacting, their own use of our services. So engaging with them is a difficult issue, and that's why I'm not very much amazed at what I'm seeing by the poll you just made.
Interesting, Yves. In terms of the number of sort of different multiple stakeholder groups that you've just mentioned and across all those different countries, how do you go about aligning your stakeholder engagement strategy so that you're engaging them on the same sorts of issues and make sure that you're targeting them appropriately?
Okay. Issues for telcos are try to be generic. In the sense that we are trying from a corporate view to say what is the responsibility of a telco? What do we bring to people? We do bring some services that are becoming quite essential services nowadays. If you think about telephony or internet, we do bring services that makes the development of many countries, that makes the development of many entrepreneurs, that bring to the business, the regular way of working, those services are becoming as important as electricity or water in some country. I would definitely tell you about a few stories I've seen in Africa, where people do not have electricity in their village. They do not have water, but they do have 2 telephones per person. So things are moving in this direction, so that the responsibility of a telco is pretty much clear, in the sense that we have a responsibility to bring those services to as much people as we can, and to have it affordable, to have it accessible, and to make sure that in the countries where we do operate, we do make a win-win type of interaction, in which we do our business, but we also contribute to the social and economic development of the country in which we operate. So these are the main issues. Now, when it goes to every particular and single country, that's why the stakeholder engagement is pretty difficult for us, because every single country do not have the same priority than the neighboring one has. When you go to, I would say, Eastern country, for instance, going from the Eastern Europe, or when you go to Africa, or when you go to Middle East, or when you go to Europe, I mean Occidental Europe, priorities and what we are hearing from our stakeholders is pretty different. Basically, in Europe, they ask us to do our job the best we can. Okay, customer relationship, quality of service. If you go to Africa, they will definitely ask you to support the economic development. They definitely ask you to make offers that can be affordable for the people. They definitely ask you to connect remote villages. They definitely ask you to be a huge contribution in employment locally. So you see the different issues are, even though they are within the basket of our full sustainability priorities, there are different priorities in different countries and in different culture. So the way to address those stakeholders is definitely a way that we need to go to every single country and to listen to every single culture, every single stakeholder, and every single demand we get from them. At the end of the day, all those priorities are part of our corporate priorities, but we have a main priority for every single country, and we do ask our operations in every single country to try to develop those demands from stakeholders, to develop them, at least the ones that are material. Materiality, when you go and talk to people, and this is my favorite way to engage, is to go and meet people. We do have, of course, the polls, the surveys, panels, but to go on the field, select the main stakeholders and go to meet them on a face-to-face meeting. After you get that, you get so many demands, so many, you have engaged so much your stakeholder that at the end of the day, after you've made a good materiality issues, you need to respect what you've heard and to get back to them and tell them what you are going to do. So this is the structure of the dialogue we are conducting in Orange, and that is applicable for businesses that have operation in many different countries. And this is how we do engage the company on what we heard from our stakeholders.
Sounds like a very comprehensive engagement strategy, Yves. I'd like to bring Caroline into the conversation, especially focusing on that note, Yves, that you mentioned on bringing services back to the community. And Caroline, why don't we talk about the Helping Britain Prosper plan and how this engagement strategy supports your core business thinking and link with your wider business strategy? Caroline, are you there for the question? So we're talking about how does your engagement strategy, namely the Helping Britain Prosper Plan, support Lloyds Banking Group's wider core business thinking and strategy around that? Caroline has unfortunately not been able to get to that question. Let's move on to the next poll. So to all of our listeners out there, the next poll is, what's your biggest challenge when trying to engage multiple stakeholders? Again, this poll question should now be on your screen. We have 4 different choices. A, determining what's relevant to each stakeholder group. B, communicating the right information to the right audience. C, bringing your sustainability achievements to life. And D, getting stakeholders to care about what you're doing. Just to repeat, the question is, what's your biggest challenge when trying to engage multiple stakeholders? We will be closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Brilliant. So from our poll results, 37% believe that their biggest challenge when trying to engage multiple stakeholders is getting stakeholders to actually care about what you're doing. Let's bring the question to Eve. As Eve, you've mentioned something really interesting about engaging all of your stakeholders in 29 different countries. Let's talk about, Eve, what is a specific difficulty you've experienced around targeting so many different stakeholders? And what tips can you actually offer our audience around this?
I will get back to the last questions, getting stakeholders to care about what you're doing. And this is really what you get while you try to engage them. As I said, companies used to think that they were doing stakeholder engagement because they had business as usual type of meetings. And when you get to sustainability issues, there is no way you cannot have your stakeholder to react to the question or to the engagement you're trying to introduce in the conversation. There is no way that your stakeholder is not completely fully ready to engage with you on the subject. The only thing you have to face is a surprise in your stakeholder because they're not used to get engaged on sustainability issues. They are a lot more used to get engaged on business as usual type of issues. So there's definitely an advantage in the sustainability. It is that everybody is concerned, basically, in one way or another. Now you need to bring your stakeholder in the direction of your own responsibility, your own sustainability. And if you break the ice and if you try to have a deep interaction with a person, you're gaining 2 things. You're gaining first issues that are most important in the eyes of your stakeholders, and your stakeholders, it could be a customer, it could be part of the authority of the country in which you are, or it could be part of the civil society. And as a person of the civil society, he has definitely a view of what your business should be. So you're getting that, and this is why it is very important not to leave this engagement alone. And you need to come back to your stakeholders and tell them what materiality you've given to their proposition or to their views. Materiality issues are the most important things for the company, is to try to tell the head of the company or the head of the countries in which you're doing your dialogue that this issue that were proposed or that was discussed with your stakeholders is material for the business of the company. And if you are frank and you go back to your stakeholders and you tell them this issue is material or this issue is not material. If the issue is material, we will consider it and we will launch action plans to develop these issues. If this issue is not material, we will not go further on these issues, but at least your stakeholder is really happy to know that you've taken care about what he said to you. Okay, so this is my reaction to the 37%. Determining what is relevant to each stakeholder is a work you do prior to the engagement. You do need to understand, to select actually your stakeholders, and this is one of the most important issues while preparing a dialogue, is to be able, especially if you go to meet them on face-to-face, you cannot meet 1,000, different stakeholders. You need to select a bunch of stakeholders that are relevant in the sense they correspond to, the 360 degree of what could be your stakeholders, but they also correspond to the most important voices that could be expressed in the country in which you operate. So once you've selected them, every single issues which are sustainability issues for you are issues you can discuss with any stakeholders. You do not need to select issue to select stakeholders and to make face-to-face the issue and the stakeholders. You need to broaden the interaction you have with them and to have as much as broaden discussion with your stakeholders. Now, if you want to take the core of the engagement, then you just give priority to the relevant stakeholders, to the relevant issue, but you do that afterwards, and this is part of your extraction of materiality.
Excellent, excellent talks, Yves. I'm going to try and bring Caroline back into the conversation. Caroline, with respect to the Helping Britain Prosper plan, you're probably in the best position to talk to our audience and talk to us about telling us how do you get your stakeholders to actually care about what you're doing around the Helping Britain Prosper plan? I think Caroline is having some issues with her system back at the offices. Apologies, everyone, for that. Let's move on to Christine. Christine, we've had some really interesting questions from our audience about the advisory panel that you've mentioned earlier in the conversation.
Yes.
Can you just tell us a little bit about how did you, first of all, go about selecting your advisory panel? And then the second question is, are there any signs that the panel is bringing about change at Alcatel-Lucent?
So thank you very much. And before I tackle those two questions, I just want to say I found the results of this second poll really fascinating, and that the majority of people said that getting stakeholders to care about what you're doing was the biggest challenge. If I were to take Alcatel-Lucent's perspective, and Alcatel-Lucent being a telecommunications vendor, we're present in over 100 countries around the world. We are the specialists in ultra-broadband access, IP networking, and cloud technologies. And I took a step back and told you that because of today the rising exponential growth of smart devices that people have, whether it's their iPhone, their tablet, their laptop, that are connecting to the network, and the impact it has on energy efficiency, but also affordability and accessibility, for us, the stakeholders, caring, in fact, comes more naturally in this business. For us, in fact, the two key challenges are communicating the right information to the right audience to give them confidence and trust that you are investing in sustainability and it's a core part of your performance and your strategy, and bringing your sustainability achievements to life, because it is so embedded in the business, whether it's from your supply chain to your ethics to your energy efficiency, to your operational carbon footprint activities, all the way to philanthropy, diversity, and digital inclusion. There's so much to tell. We found that over the years, for example, our corporate responsibility report, on average, has been anywhere between 200 to 250 pages long because of how embedded it is across our business and our activities. Which then takes the notion, if I can bring it back to the advisory panel, why did we do this? Because we've tried engagement over the years. We've experimented with different ways of reaching out to people. I really applaud what my colleague Yves Nissim from Orange has been explaining about the face-to-face interaction. I think, of course, face-to-face interaction is irreplaceable. But also when you're present in over 100 countries around the world, face-to-face becomes a challenge, which is why as a technology company, we have really put a focus on making sure all of our information with hopefully the right balance in detail, in verification, and accuracy, and I would say ambition is available to all of our stakeholders, targeting our customers first, investors, employees, and then after that civil society, public authorities, etc. And being able to put in a variety of places, whether it's in our annual financial report, our annual report, or on our sustainability website, and using different ways of communicating it. And we've been measuring statistics of the amount of hits, of the reach, of the amount of time that has been spent on our website, so we understand whether we're getting greater engagement or whether we're losing time. For example, last year on our website, on average, 72% of visitors spent over 10 minutes studying the information on our sustainability website, which gives us an idea that people, in fact, are looking for quantitative and qualitative information. They aren't just skimming through. They're actually going through and zooming in an area. We've also measured that we've now increased our geographical reach to 15 countries, including places such as the usual suspects, United States, France, India, China, Brazil, but also to places such as Singapore, Korea, and that our geographic reach is expanding on who is going and looking for information, which says to us that this is becoming extremely relevant and essential to our business. Now, the advisory panel came into being because when you're trying to target a wide audience, a very varied audience, and an audience that does have varying levels of expectations because of different, as Yves pointed out, cultural backgrounds, country backgrounds, and different challenges, whether they're economic, environmental, or social, we wanted to be able to have a small group where we could really have meaningful discussion with 8 people around the table. We've actually done it in a virtual format because we have people ranging that are located in Australia, on the west coast of the States, the east coast, in France, in Belgium, in the UK, in Spain. It's hard to couple all these people in one room, although we have tried. We're finding it very challenging. So we've broken it down into 90-minute virtual sessions. We've had 4 so far this year. We've targeted these stakeholders because these are the stakeholders we have closest relationships with, that we believe they have the same ambition and the same expectations that we have on the importance of sustainability to driving their business performance. And we want to build a closer partnership with them. We want to understand whether or not we're on track, whether we're meeting the bar, whether we've missed the bar, or what are the other issues. So we've done it in terms of dialogue with focus sessions on key issues. We've looked at what we believe as a company are 3 differentiating factors at Alcatel-Lucent when it comes to sustainability. What we want to be recognized is as the technology leader regarding sustainability, but most importantly about responsible business innovation. And when we talk about responsible business innovation, we believe our differentiating factors are around our approach to ethics and compliance, our approach to sustainability as a driving requirement across the supply chain, and third, our approach to applying eco-innovation across our product portfolio while raising the bar for the technology industry. So 3 topics: ethics, supply chain, and green, if I can label it generically. And we have done focus sessions with our advisory panel to go through our strategy, our performance, our highlights, our KPIs, and to get their feedback on how can we improve. Are we meeting the expectations? And if we are, how can we improve? If we're not meeting the expectations, What do they expect of us to do better? And we've had really interesting feedback about, although we have tremendous amount of transparency with our reporting and on our website, there are areas that we can fine-tune more. And I give the example on supply chain. We require all of our supply chain partners to follow sustainability requirements, including United Nations Global Compact, EICC Code of Conduct. We assess and evaluate our suppliers using EcoVadis methodology, and then after that we work with them to improve their performance, to make sure that they always have a satisfactory performance when it comes to sustainability, the economic, the environmental, and the social dimensions. And what some of our stakeholders are looking for is, instead of always sanctioning suppliers for unsatisfactory performance and giving statistics on this, why don't we turn it around and recognize more our supply chain champions? Give them visibility. Give them visibility on the things that they are doing right. Make them a model for other partners in the ecosystem of the technology industry, so that we have a growing momentum that sustainability bar can be set at a higher pace, and that we as an industry are doing something proactive to set this bar. Because we recognize we're in a digital world, we're in a digital society, we're in a digital economy. Networks are at the heart of this world. And Alcatel-Lucent, as a specialist in ultra-broadband IP and cloud technologies through the network, we recognize that we also have a key role to play to make sure that they are trusted, that they are secure, that we are working with partners who have the same values with us and that are driving it across the supply chain, and that we're always pushing innovation further to address the key needs. So those are some of the topics that we are addressing. Now the question is, how are we going to drive change? Well, this is part of a process, and we're halfway through the process. So we set up the advisory panel. We had a kickoff meeting in April. In June, we had 3 deep dive sessions on the 3 material differentiating factors for Alcatel-Lucent, around our ethics, around our supply chain, around our eco-innovation. And now what we're going to be doing is a materiality analysis with each of these stakeholders. And then in the second half of the year, we're going to be coming back to them and saying to them, these are the things we have taken back from the materiality analysis. These are the things that we've taken back from the focus sessions that we did in the first half of the year. This is how we're going to recalibrate our strategy according to your expectations and to launch it end of year. This is the plan. We are very confident of the enthusiasm, the meaningful feedback, and the proactive suggestions we've received so far on our performance and on our strategy and on our 3 differentiating factors. And it's a model that I would highly recommend a lot of people to go and try out. It's pretty simple. I think that it deepens the partnership, and most importantly, it gives us an understanding of what really people want us to do to make sure that we continue driving the bar, not only for ourselves as a company, but for the telecommunications industry, and most importantly for the technology industry in today's digital society.
Thanks, Christine, and thanks for expanding on that question. I actually want to bring it back to the makeup of your advisory panel. You've mentioned that the demographics is quite sort of widespread and is made up of lots of different countries. But I'm quite interested, as well as the audience, to find out what kind of people make up your advisory panel. Are they purely from the sustainability team, or is it more sort of wider than that?
It's wide, actually, and we did this on purpose. So if I just review them, the stakeholders, we have got 3 customers from basically representing every major continent. So we've got 1 for Europe, Middle East, Africa, 1 for Latin America, and 1 for Asia Pacific. We've got a key investor that is very active in ESG investing with a holistic view as well as investing in the financial community. We've got a key rating agency. We've got a major NGO that is quite prominent in our space. We've got a government official, because we felt it was important to make sure that while there are governments out there that are taking proactive steps on trying to create CSR and sustainability policies, it's important to be able to share with them and to get the pulse. And finally, we took one of our major suppliers, because for us, suppliers are our key partners, and it's important to be able to share with them, but also to see how we can help them as well increase their performance and to carry it across the the ecosystem. In terms of the level in there, we have a variety of people from CSR experts, so our counterparts, all the way to head of operations, to analysts, to purchasing. I'm trying to think. Yeah, those are the key areas. So really, we've taken it from different angles with a variety of functions that we felt would give us a diversified viewpoint in order to recalibrate our strategy, but most importantly, to understand what the expectations are and how can we continuously improve and push ourselves to maintain our leadership in this space.
Great. Thank you, Christine. I think that will add a lot of value to our audience, especially if they want to build a similar sustainability advisory panel for themselves. Now, I have some good news, everyone. Caroline is back. Unfortunately, she had a fire alarm, so she had to run out of the office unexpectedly. Right, Caroline, I actually wanted to ask you a little bit more about the Helping Britain Prosper Plan and talk about how did you get your stakeholders to care about what you're doing through this plan?
Okay, thank you, and I'm sorry that I had to leave the building. Unfortunately, I had no choice. The alarm went off. We don't know quite why, so apologies again. Yeah, in terms of our Helping Britain Prosper Plan, we launched the plan in March of this year, which has 7 big commitments and 26 underpinning metrics. When we were looking to develop a plan, we wanted to tie this in with our purpose of helping Britain prosper, and we wanted to tie it in with our overall business strategy, Best Bank for Customers, because we don't see responsible business here as something that's separate. We see it very much, the activities around that very much are aligned to our core business activity. So when we developed the plan, the areas that we have within that plan are very focused on what we do, but the way we look at it, I describe it as turning up the dial and punching above our weight in these areas, and then really setting some targets that are longer term, out to 2017 and 2020. But obviously, when you want to do something like this, you just can't sort of pick these commitments and measures out of the air. You have to work with your stakeholders because you have to understand what it is they want. What is it they expect from us as Lloyds Banking Group. So we not only looked at those measures and talked to people internally within the business, we went out externally to reach a number of key stakeholders and opinion formers to help us to shape that. But equally, like Christine, we have an independent stakeholder panel, and the panel is made up of an investor, a supplier, an ethical organisation, an academic, community organisation, etc. And so they really helped us as well in really shaping that, because there's nothing better than to have that sort of range of stakeholders that act on behalf of their stakeholder group that can actually help you to understand what it is they want from you. So that's been hugely successful. The plan itself really addresses the big issues that we're facing in Britain today, because we're predominantly a UK bank, 98% UK, and our purpose, going back to that purpose of helping Britain to prosper. When we were looking at this, we really looked at the big issues we're facing. And when you think about things like, 80% of your annual income is required to buy your first home, or 21% of 16 to 25-year-olds are unemployed, or 99% of all British businesses are SMEs. 8 million people on low incomes couldn't access funding in banks from banks in 2013. These are the sort of statistics that then make you think, well, why wouldn't we want to address these issues? And it's looking at sustainability in its broadest form. So, it goes back to that point of really having that integrated strategy. It's about what you do as a business. And, as I mentioned, just sort of punching above your weight there. The great thing about the plan as well, and aligning it to our strategy, we worked actually with EY for 1.5 years before developing this and going out to those stakeholders that I mentioned. But it's about the outcomes as well as the impacts that really demonstrate you're helping Britain to prosper. So if we can't demonstrate that, then it doesn't go into the plan. So I think what it identifies is this sort of key strategy that is about your business. It creates that framework that the business, all the various business units can actually work to, and then the initiatives and the activities that sort of fall below the plan itself all form part of what we're trying to achieve here.
Excellent. Thanks, Caroline. Right, I realize that we're slightly running out of time, so let's go to our last poll question to all our listeners. So our third poll question of today's webinar is, how important is your report when building stakeholder trust? And we have 4 options here. A, it is highly important. B, important. C, not that important. And D, of no importance. And remember everyone, this is your opportunity to get your views shared. So please take part in the poll. The poll will be closing in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Interesting results from everyone. The most interesting is that only 3% believe that their report is of no importance when building stakeholder trust. So that's of some comfort. We have 41% who think it's highly important and 44% who believe that it is important. So we've got some positive results over here. Caroline, do you want to talk about your thoughts on the results of today's poll?
Yes, as you say, you've got 3% there of no importance. I mean, I genuinely believe the report, we think about our responsible business report as our sort of key communications tool for our stakeholders. And, I described about the Helping Britain Prosper plan. The Helping Britain Prosper plan is part of our responsible business annual report. So we have a sort of backwards looking as well as forwards facing. But again, in developing that plan and developing the report, we use our stakeholder panel to help us to shape it, but also they help us in our thinking as we're creating that report. So clearly, it is important to your stakeholder, and it's important to your stakeholder in terms of, the fact that you need to have a very open and honest and transparent report that meets all of their needs.
Good stuff. Thanks, Caroline. Eve, I want to bring you back in the conversation and ask you, is there a particular stakeholder group that you have trouble engaging? And if so, what sort of approach do you take?
Okay. If you look at the events that we're facing nowadays, there are definitely a type of stakeholders that are more difficult to assess. Let me drive you to the problem of privacy and security of data. We have had quite a few events on the news for the last year where we had breach of privacy, breach of security, where we were opposed by governments in many countries. The fact that we do open our data to governments, so this is a huge issue, and it has brought the news quite a few times. We had difficulties to engage with the civil society on these issues because we had difficulties to engage with governments on these issues from country to country. We do operate in different countries with different legislation, and if you look at the news in the last 2 or 3 years and you see how many revolutions there's been around the globe, Orange is practically operating in all of these regions. So we are hooked to governments by our license agreements, and we are hooked to the civil society because we are serving it. So the difficulty was to address governments and civil society through those kind of issues. So the way to do that we try to have quite a few other telcos and quite a few other suppliers who are facing the same problems. We group ourselves in an association which is called the Telecom Industry Dialogue, in which we try to address on the worldwide level multi-stakeholder dialogue with the civil society and the governments, in order to be able to face those issues and in order to be able to write down and to engage accountability on the processes that are being made between the civil society, the governments, and the IT industries. This industry dialogue has set up a set of 10 principles that we're trying to follow all the way through in every single country. It's a difficult issue, and for us, this was the only way to address this issue on the worldwide level and also in a single country level.
Great. Thanks, Yves. And before we finish the webinar, I have one final question I would like to ask Christine. Christine, considering your biggest CSR issue today, and imagine that in 5 years' time you are celebrating that you have just overcome it, what was the biggest single thing you did out of the ordinary that achieved the success for you?
Wow, what a question. I think really the extraordinary is where we are today, is that sustainability becomes a key strategic industry, a key strategic activity across the business, in every facet of your business, and becomes also business as usual with our key target audiences, customers, of course, investors, employees, civil society, and public authorities, and that we are able to group together for major challenges to find solutions, because we recognize that nobody can do it alone. And I give you two examples. One of them, I think that Yves has extremely well illustrated the challenge today of human rights, freedom of expression, and privacy, and the fact that in the telecommunications industry we have established this industry dialogue, which is a collaboration of 9 companies, vendors, and operators working together on the very thorny issue and the challenging issue of freedom of expression and privacy, and working also reaching out to other NGOs such as the Global Network Initiative to exchange best practices and to do proactive stakeholder dialogue, because we realize we can't do alone. We have to reach together as companies, we have to reach together as stakeholder groups and try and tackle larger industry. And I think the second for us is also the challenge of green. At Alcatel-Lucent, through Bell Labs, we've established a consortium called Green Touch. It was launched in 2010. We have over 48 members worldwide, including competitors, customers, academics, public authorities, basically the world's best mind to tackle one bold challenge. We want to create telecommunications networks that are 1,000 times more energy efficient, using a baseline of 2010 by 2015. So Bell Labs went out there, Alcatel-Lucent's Bell Labs, brought together the world's greatest minds, including our own competitors, our own customers, but also academics, all sorts of stakeholder groups, and said, let's work together to recreate the network that is 1,000 times more energy efficient to handle the demands of today's digital world. And what Green Touch has come back just a year ago in through their work is by looking at traffic predictions of 2020, they have started creating the architecture that will make traffic 90% more energy efficient. So we know today how to radically redesign our networks to address our major challenge of energy efficiency, reducing carbon footprint, making them more affordable and more accessible, and at the same time as well more secure and more reliable. And I think through examples of what we've done with Green Touch, I think through the example that Yves brought up of the telecommunications industry dialogue on human rights, this is the way to go forward. That is to bring in multi-stakeholder dialogue to tackle bold challenges, but at the same time making sure that within your own company You are driving sustainability across the business, across the strategy, across the performance to make sure that we're continuously responding to today's major needs and innovating to bring them farther and raise the bar.
Excellent, Christine. I love one of your first statements, actually, when you said sustainability is business as usual. What a quote. Right. Thanks, everyone. It's been an excellent discussion, and I'm afraid time has run out. Everyone who's signed up for the webinar will receive a recording of today's webinar. If your questions weren't answered, you can raise this with Christine, Eve, and Caroline, along with 25 leading industry figures who will be joining us at the 8th Annual CR Reporting and Communications Summit on the 13th to the 14th of November in London. So please visit www.ethicalcorp.com/reporting for the full speaker lineup and agenda. Thanks again, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Bye.